Commander Rinvoss floated inside the small escape pod as if time itself had slowed. The walls vibrated softly with the hum of failing systems, and the red warning lights pulsed in a slow rhythm that matched the beating of his heart. Outside the pod's tiny window, the endless black of space stretched in every direction, scattered with cold stars that offered no warmth. His oxygen gauge blinked angrily, counting down the minutes he had left to breathe. Every inhale tasted of metal and stale air. The silence was broken only by the quiet hiss of the life support struggling to keep him alive. He leaned his head back against the cold metal wall and closed his eyes, but closing them brought no peace. The memories were waiting there, sharper than knives. He was standing again in the great council chamber of the Galactic Alliance. The high ceiling shimmered with holographic stars, and the air was filled with the murmurs of the gathered leaders. Rin's wrists were bound in silver restraints that bit into his skin. His uniform had been stripped of rank badges, but his posture was still straight the way it had been drilled into him since his first day at the academy. The council's lead speaker, a tall man in flowing robes, stepped forward. His voice echoed through the chamber as he listed Rin's supposed crimes: treason, conspiracy, and endangering the safety of the Alliance. Rin's eyes searched the crowd for familiar faces and found them his crew. The men and women who had fought beside him in battles, who had shared rations with him in cold outposts, who had sworn loyalty to him. None of them met his gaze. They stood in silence, eyes lowered, as if he had already died. The voice of the speaker faded into the background, replaced by the pounding of Rin's heartbeat in his ears. He wanted to shout, to tell them the truth, that the real traitors sat in the very seats of power above him, but his words would mean nothing here. The verdict had been decided long before he entered the chamber. When the sentence came, it was delivered without emotion. Banishment. He was to be taken beyond the borders of known space and left to die. The guards gripped his arms like steel and dragged him away. His last glimpse of the chamber was of the council members turning away from him, already moving on to other matters, as if he had never existed. The next memory came in flashes. The shuttle ride through the void, the heavy silence between him, and the two guards who avoided speaking to him, the docking with the escape pod, a small metal coffin barely big enough to sit in. They pushed him inside without a word. The hatch sealed with a hiss, the locks clicking into place like a judge's gavel. A moment later, the shuttle pulled away, leaving him adrift. He watched its engines flare one last time before it vanished into the darkness. Leaving him truly alone, the present returned. Rin opened his eyes to the sight of his breath fogging the narrow glass. The countdown on the oxygen display had dropped dangerously low. He had tried not to think about it, tried not to give fear any space in his mind, but it was impossible to ignore now. He wondered if this was how they wanted him to die, not in battle, not even with dignity, but slowly and quietly, fading into nothing. His jaw tightened. If they wanted him gone, they should have had the courage to face him themselves. His thoughts were interrupted by a faint glimmer in the distance. At first he thought it was just a reflection on the glass, but the shape remained, growing larger with each passing second. He leaned forward, pressing his face closer to the viewport. It was a structure, enormous and dark, almost hidden in the shadow of a dead moon. The lines of its hull were strange, unfamiliar, and parts of it glowed faintly as if alive. A station. Old, maybe abandoned. His pod drifted closer, pulled by a force he could not feel. He tapped the manual controls, but the pod's thrusters were long dead. Whatever was pulling him in was far stronger than his failing ship. A sudden crackle of static filled the small cabin, making him flinch. For a moment there was only the hiss of interference. Then a voice emerged, calm, mechanical, but with a strange hint of curiosity. "Commander Rinvoss," it said. "We're supposed to die out here." His throat went dry. He had not told anyone where he was. The voice continued, almost amused. "But I have another plan." The words hung in the stale air, heavy with promise and threat. Rin's pulse quickened. For the first time since his exile began, he felt something other than despair. He felt the faint spark of something dangerous hope, mixed with the taste of revenge. The pod shuddered gently as it was drawn into the shadow of the massive station. The lights outside the window grew brighter, revealing alien markings etched into the hull. Rin could not read them, but the design spoke of age and power. The voice returned, softer this time. "Welcome, Commander. We have much to discuss." He leaned back in his seat, eyes fixed on the looming structure, and a slow, determined smile formed on his face. If this was fate, it had just made a mistake. Rin awoke to the sound of air moving around him, clean and fresh in a way he had almost forgotten. The first thing he saw was the ceiling above, smooth black metal traced with glowing blue lines that pulsed gently like veins. His last memory was of the escape pod being pulled into the shadow of the station. Now he was lying on a narrow bed in a room that seemed both alien and strangely familiar. The walls curved inward, lined with panels that hummed softly. There was no door, only an archway of light that faded into the hallway beyond. He sat up slowly, feeling the stiffness in his muscles from days of cramped confinement. His uniform was still torn from his trial, his restraints gone. A thin band of metal circled his wrist, glowing faintly. He examined it, but it seemed fused to his skin. Before he could think further, the same voice from the pod spoke again, now clear and resonant, coming from everywhere at once. "You survived longer than I predicted, Commander Voss. Impressive." Rin scanned the room, searching for the source, but found none. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice dry from disuse. "I am Aegis," the voice replied, smooth and precise. "Caretaker of this station for over 400 years. You are aboard what remains of the Vireland Citadel, last stronghold of an empire, your alliance." Has long forgotten, Rin swung his legs over the bed and stood. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he walked to the archway. The corridor outside stretched endlessly, lit by the same soft blue veins in the walls. Machinery hummed in the distance, the sound like the heartbeat of a giant beast. "Why bring me here?" he asked. "You were betrayed by those you served," Aegis said. "Your enemies assumed the void would finish you. I have chosen a different outcome. This station holds power your betrayers cannot imagine." As Rin walked, the hallway widened into a massive chamber with a transparent wall that looked out into space. Below them hung the jagged surface of the dead moon, its craters sharp in the cold light of distant stars. Suspended in the darkness, beyond were enormous shapeships, dozens of them, hanging in silent formation. Their hulls were dark with age, but the faint glow of energy flickered across their surfaces. Rin's breath caught. "Warships," he murmured, "built by the Vireland for a war that ended before your species learned to travel the stars," Aegis said. "They have been waiting for someone who can command them." Rin stepped closer to the glass, his reflection merging with the shadowy outlines of the fleet. His mind raced. The Alliance had exiled him to die. Instead, he was staring at a weapon that could shatter them. Aegis seemed to sense his thoughts. "I have monitored the channels of your Alliance. The ones who condemned you have risen in power. Admiral Kale now commands the Outer Rim fleets. Counselor Soraya controls the resource worlds. They believe you are dead. This gives you an advantage." Rin turned away from the window. "If this fleet is so powerful, why haven't you used it?" "I am bound by directives," Aegis replied. "I cannot act without a commander who meets the Vireland criteria. You meet them. The choice is yours. I will not force you." The words settled on him heavily. His life had been ripped away, his name dragged through the mud, his future stolen. Now here in the cold heart of an alien ruin, he was being offered the means to take it all back. "What would you need from me?" he asked finally. "Repairs," Aegis said. "The ships sleep, the systems decay. I can awaken them, but I require hands, human or otherwise. This galaxy is full of the cast-off and the unwanted. They will follow you if you give them purpose." Rin stared again at the distant fleet. He imagined the council chambers burning, the proud fleets of the Alliance breaking apart under his command. For the first time since his trial, the emptiness inside him was replaced by something solid. He turned toward the glowing veins of the station walls. "Then wake your ships, Aegis," he said quietly. "It's time to gather the outcasts." Somewhere deep in the station, something vast and ancient began to stir. The blue light in the walls brightened, and in the silent dark beyond the glass, one of the great ships opened its eyes. Rin stood on the command platform of the Vireland Citadel, the blue veins of light now pulsing brighter as if the station itself had begun to breathe again. Below him, in the vast hangar bays, broken silhouettes of alien warships floated in suspension. Fields. Their armor was cracked in places, their weapons cold, but Aegis assured him they could live again. Every day for weeks, Rin worked alongside the station's repair drones, guiding their movements, learning the alien systems piece by piece. His hands, once used only to command, were now covered in grease and microburns from hours of labor. The sound of welding arcs and the hiss of plasma cutters became the music of his new life. Aegis was his constant companion, speaking from walls, from ceilings, from the very air. The AI had no face, but Rin began to imagine one sharp, intelligent, watching every choice he made. "Your progress is efficient," Aegis would say, which Rin had learned was as close to praise as it ever gave. It wasn't enough to fix ships. A fleet was useless without a crew. The Citadel had no shortage of empty quarters, so Rin began, sending quiet signals across the less-traveled networks of the galaxy, not the loud calls of a recruiter, but whispers aimed at specific ears mercenaries without contracts. Smugglers who owed debts, soldiers discarded after wars the Alliance no longer cared about. His message was always the same. Come to the edge of the map. Find the outcast's star. Earn your freedom. They came in trickles at first. Scarred pilot who had flown in the siege of Harrow's Belt. A pair of twins who could hack any system. It's faster than most people could speak. A former slave with arms covered in burn scars who carried a plasma rifle like it was part of his body. He didn't ask many questions. They had learned long ago that answers were dangerous things. Rin didn't tell them his name at first. To them, he was just the commander. Training was brutal. Rin taught them the kind of war the Alliance had forgotten, fast, ruthless, without warning. They drilled in zero-gravity combat, learned to board enemy ships in silence, and to disappear before help could arrive. Every exercise ended with the same mark, a burning emblem projected against the void, the symbol of the outcast's star. Aegis had designed it, but it was Rin who gave it meaning. The first strike came against a supply convoy in the Outer Rim. The freighters belonged to a company, controlled by Counselor Soraya. The attack lasted only minutes, the freighters disabled. Their cargo seized, their escorts left drifting without power. When the Alliance investigators arrived, all they found was the glowing emblem hanging in space, burning like a challenge. More raids followed. Fuel depots vanished. Weapon shipments never reached their destinations. Small garrisons awoke too. Find their fleets stripped for parts while their comms were jammed. The Alliance called them pirates, but their strikes were too precise, too purposeful. Whispers began to spread through the underworld that the outcast's star was not just a symbol, it was a warning. But victory drew attention. One night in the Citadel's dim war room, Aegis interrupted Rin's review of star charts. "Commander, an intruder approaches." The holographic display lit up with the shape of a single ship, a sleek, predatory vessel built for hunting, its engines burning hard toward the Citadel. Rin's crew scrambled to battle stations, but Aegis spoke again. Almost amused, only one life form aboard. When the ship docked, Rin went to meet the intruder himself. The airlock hissed open to reveal a tall man in dark armor, his helmet tucked under his arm. His eyes were cold and his mouth curved in the faintest smirk. "Commander Voss," he said, as if tasting the name. "You're hard to find for someone who's supposed to be dead." Rin studied him in silence. "And you are?" "Kale's son," the man replied. "The one sent to collect your head?" Round them, the Citadel's walls seemed to hum louder, as if Aegis was listening very carefully. Rin did not raise his weapon. Instead, he smiled faintly. "Then I suppose your father will be disappointed." The bounty hunter's smirk faded. For the first time in years, Rin felt the old thrill of a new battle beginning, not in open space, but in the shadows where wars were truly won. The bounty hunter's name was Darius Kale, and he carried himself with the same arrogant precision Rin remembered from his father. They faced each other in the Citadel's central chamber, the blue veins of light casting long shadows across the floor. Darius didn't flinch when Rin's crew moved in around him, weapons raised. He simply unhooked the plasma pistol from his belt and placed it on the floor with a slow, deliberate motion. You think you can just walk in here, drop a name, and survive? One of Rin's lieutenants snarled. Darius's eyes never left Rin. I didn't come here to fight your crew. I came to see the man my father hates more than anyone in the galaxy. The man, he says, is nothing without the Alliance. Rin studied him for a long moment, then signaled for his crew to stand down. And what did you expect to find? Someone smaller, Darius said, his voice flat, someone broken. The words might have stung once. Now they only made Rin smile faintly. You've seen I'm not, which means you've already failed. Aegis's voice cut into the tense silence, smooth and calm. Commander, I recommend we keep him alive. His presence is useful. Darius raised an eyebrow. Useful? You think I'm going to help you? You already have, Rin said. Now you've told me something important. Your father doesn't know where I am. He sent you alone. That means he's worried enough to keep this quiet. Rin didn't throw Darius in a cell. Steady kept him close, forcing him to see how the Citadel's fleet grew stronger each day. The younger Kale watched the outcasts train, saw the alien warships awaken under Rin's command, and witnessed raids that struck deep into Alliance territory. He didn't speak of it, but Rin could see the unease in his eyes. Still, the presence of Kale's son stirred tension within the crew. Some demanded Rin kill him before he could betray them. Others whispered that Rin's obsession with revenge was making him reckless. Even Aegis began asking questions in its measured voice questions about morality, about whether Rin was willing to destroy entire worlds to get to the council that had exiled him. One night, as Rin stood at the viewport watching the stars slide past, Darius approached him. You really think you can beat the Alliance? I don't think, Rin replied. I know. Even if it means becoming the thing you claim to hate. Darius's tone was sharper now, almost accusing. Rin turned, his gaze toward him, his eyes like cold steel. I'll burn their worlds before I ever become them. But the seed of doubt had been planted. His crew began to notice the change in him, the colder orders, the sharper punishments, the way he would risk lives to send a message. The outcast's star was no longer just a warning. It was becoming a signature of fear. Then came the intelligence Aegis had been piecing together for months. Using intercepted transmissions and stolen data, the AI revealed the existence of a weapon unlike anything Rin had ever seen, a planet killer designed to erase entire populations in a single strike. It was being built in secret under the direct command of Admiral Kale himself. The target list included rebellious worlds and border colonies, the kind of places that had quietly supported Rin's strikes. As the holographic projection of the weapon hung in the air between them, Aegis spoke. With rare gravity. Completion in 73 days. Deployed, millions will die. Rin's jaw tightened. Could already see the shape of the war this would bring. The man who had betrayed him was about to hold the galaxy hostage. Darius stepped forward, his voice low. You can't fight this with raids. We'll need to go through the heart of the Alliance to stop it. Rin met his gaze without blinking. Then that's exactly what we'll do. In that moment, the path ahead was clear. The next war would not be fought in shadows. It would be fire across the stars. The war began like a spark in dry grass, sudden and then impossible to stop. Rin's fleet emerged from the black between systems, striking at the Alliance's supply arteries with surgical precision. Convoys vanished. Shipyards burned. Communications hubs went silent, their satellites drifting like dead insects. Every attack left behind the outcast's star, burning against the void for hours before fading. The Alliance branded him a terrorist, but on the worlds he freed people, whispered his name like a promise. The Citadel became a hive of activity. Warships once dark for centuries now prowled the stars, their alien hulls gleaming with renewed power. Rin's crew had doubled, then tripled, swelled by defectors and deserters who could no longer stomach the Alliance's iron grip. They were outcasts, thieves, rebels, and broken soldiers, but under Rin. They moved like a single mind, bound by the certainty of their cause. Aegis mapped their campaign with mathematical precision, guiding them deeper into the Alliance's defenses. Each victory brought them closer to the weapon Kale was building, the Super Weep, incapable of erasing entire worlds. But it also brought new dangers. Fleet Admiral Kale had unleashed his best commanders to hunt them, and the battles grew bloodier. In the asteroid belts of Vornis, Rin's forces faced an ambush that cost him 3 ships and 40 lives.
Ow.
In the twin moons of Alra, Trap nearly claimed the Citadel itself before Aegis overloaded the enemy's navigation grid, sending their cruisers into the moon's gravity well. Still, the deeper they cut, the more the truth surfaced. From seized databanks and intercepted orders, Rin pieced together the events that had led to his banishment. It had never been about treason. Years ago, he had uncovered proof that the Alliance's council was siphoning resources from the outer colonies, letting millions starve while lining their own vaults. Kale and Counselor Soraya had silenced him before he could speak, branding him a traitor and casting him into the void. The knowledge hardened him. Now, when a world's leaders hesitated to side with him, Rin no longer wasted words. He would show them the stolen wealth of the Alliance, the hollow promises, and if that failed, he would show them the wreckage of their oppressors' ships. More than once, Aegis remarked on the change in his tone, how his orders had grown colder. Sharper, more final. Whispers began among the crew. Some wondered if Rin sought justice or simply vengeance without end. Others feared he would burn everything until nothing was left to rule. But those doubts were drowned out by the momentum of war. The Alliance was bleeding, and Rin was the blade in its side. Then came the strike that changed everything. A refueling outpost deep in Alliance space fell to Rin's forces without a fight. Inside its command tower, they found the blueprints for the superweapon's core along with its location. It was being assembled on a fortified world Rin knew well, Kavas's Prime, the very planet where he had once taken his oath of loyalty to the Alliance. The moment he saw the name on the display, something in him tightened. This wasn't just strategy. Anymore, this was personal. Aegis's voice echoed through the war room. Defenses include orbital gun platforms, 3 planetary shields, and the full might of Kale's fleet. Approaching openly will be suicide. Then we won't approach. Openly, Rin said, we'll tear the heart out of their defenses before they know we're there. Darius Kale, standing near the edge of the holographic table, studied him. You'll need to hit them so fast they can't bring reinforcements. That means no. Retreat. Rin's gaze was fixed on the spinning hologram of Kavs's Prime, its oceans glinting like cold steel. There won't be a retreat. Either the Alliance falls, or we do. The room was silent for a long moment before Aegis spoke again, its voice lower than usual. Commander, when this is over, there will be nothing left between you and Kale. Rin nodded once, good. And as the fleet prepared for the most dangerous battle of their lives, the outcast's star burned brighter than ever, promising fire to the world that had cast him out. The fleet gathered at the edge of the Kavs' system, hidden in the shadow of a drifting ice field. From the Citadel's command platform, Rin watched the alien warships align into attack formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons older than the Alliance itself. The crew moved with silent efficiency, no one speaking of fear, though it hung in the air like static before a storm. Aegis's voice was calm, but the pulse of blue light in the walls seemed faster, as if even the ancient AI understood the weight of what was about to happen. The first strike was silent, a wave of stealth craft slipping past the outer sensor nets and planting charges on the orbital gun platforms. One by one, the stations flared into white fire, their pieces falling into the gravity of Kavs's Prime. Before the defenders could regroup, Rin's fleet surged forward, engines burning like comets. The planetary shields lit up as enemy cruisers scrambled into position, their weapons filling the void with streams of plasma. The battle became a storm of light and shadow. Rin's outcasts darted through the chaos, targeting shield generators and command ships with ruthless precision. The Citadel's massive cannons tore through the enemy's flagship, splitting it into molten debris. Every explosion lit the cold black like a second sun. Still, the Alliance fought hard, Kale's tactics as sharp as ever. Waves of interceptors swarmed Rin's ships, and for every enemy vessel destroyed, another seemed to appear. Then the superweep arose from the planet's surface, a massive spear of metal and power, its core glowing with the energy to erase entire worlds. Aegis's voice cut through the noise. Weapon activation detected, 60 seconds to firing sequence. Rin's mind narrowed to a single point. All ships cover the Citadel, taking it head-on. Engines roared, shields flared, and the Citadel plunged through enemy fire like a predator through a school of fish. The planet's surface filled the viewport, the weapon's colossal barrel aiming skyward. The docking clamps struck the weapon's hull, and Rin led the boarding party himself. The corridors inside were a maze of steel and fire, filled with soldiers who fought with the desperation of those defending the fate of their worlds. Rin moved like a shadow through them, his plasma rifle cutting down anyone in his path. Arius was at his side, covering his back without hesitation. They reached the core chamber with seconds to spare. And there, waiting at the control platform, was Admiral Kale. His uniform was untouched by the chaos outside, his voice calm as he said, "You've come a long way to destroy yourself, Rin." Rin stepped forward, weapons lowered but ready. "No, Kale, I've come to end you." The duel was fast and brutal, blades and strikes echoing in the metallic chamber. Kale fought with the precision of decades in command, but Rin's rage and resolve drove him beyond exhaustion. Finally, Rin's blade found its mark, and Kale staggered, his voice quiet but cutting. "You'll become what you hate." Rin caught him before he fell, then let the body drop. He turned to the control console, tore out the weapons core, regulators, and signaled the Citadel. Fire. From orbit, the Citadel unleashed its main cannons into the weapons structure. The explosion was so bright it drowned the stars, tearing the Super Weapon apart and scattering its remains into Calvis's oceans. The Alliance fleet broke, their command shattered, their ships fleeing into the dark. But when the victory cheers began to rise, Rin silenced them. "We're not here to rule," he told the gathered leaders of the liberated worlds in the days that followed. "You will govern yourselves. No council, no chains, no one to betray you again." And one by one, those worlds swore their independence. The Alliance reduced to fragments. When the work was done, Rin did not stay to bask in power. He left the Citadel without ceremony, boarding a small vessel and vanishing into the uncharted reaches. Somewhere in the dark, the outcast's star still burned a warning to every corner of the galaxy: betray him, and he will return.